In this video, I'm going to show you how to make these pot lid holders with the bow. They can be used to grab a hot lid or the handles of a pot or a skillet. The free printable pattern can be found on gatheredseams.com, and I'll link to that in the description. We're going to start with the bow by folding the 4.5-inch long piece of bias tape, having it double folded, and then top stitching along either side. Then you can fold it in half to find the center, and then fold both ends in and stitch them into place. Then use some fabric glue to secure the loop to the bow. Put some on the center and then wrap the loop around. And then I also put some glue on the bottom side to secure the two ends together, and I'll clip those into place to dry. And once that's dry, you can baste it to the top center of your holder. Now you can layer your batting to the back side of your outer pieces, and you want to make sure that you're lining up the bottom edge of your batting and your fabric. And then you're going to place right sides together and stitch around the curved edge. You're going to sew so that you're just catching about 1/8 of an inch of that batting. And it helps if you use a zipper foot and move your needle to the left so you can get nice and close to that bow. Trim your seam allowance down to about 1/4 of an inch away from your stitching. And then you can flip it right side out, and we'll sew our lining together, just placing right sides together and stitching around the curved edge. Cut that seam allowance down to about 1/4 of an inch away from the stitching. Place your lining inside the holder and make sure the side seams are lined up and it's pressed to the top of the holder. And then it's going to be a little bit longer than the outside piece, so you'll trim off that bottom edge. Next, you can sew your bias tape on. So I cut my end at a 45-degree angle and then fold that end back by about 1/2 inch. And then you're going to sew it on to the inside of your pot holder in that crease. Make sure you're not pulling on the bias tape as you go, just gently guide it into place. As you come back around to the start, make sure that that edge is folded back, and then you're going to sew about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch past the start of your bias tape. Cut the excess of the end of the bias tape off at a 45-degree angle, and then you can flip that bias tape over to the other side. Your holder will be wrong side out, so you're just going to smooth the bottom edge, make sure that that fabric is nice and flat so that you don't have any wrinkles in it when you sew the second side of your bias tape on. And then just double fold that bias tape into place, making sure that the folded edge is covering the line of stitching, and clip it into place. And lastly, you can top stitch your bias tape. I move my needle to the left to make sure that I can get it nice and close to that edge. And I'm sewing about 1/8 of an inch inside from the edge of my bias tape. Just check as you go to make sure that your folded edge is covering that line of stitching. And then the last step is to give it a bit of a press to get those creases out. You don't want to press too hard and flatten the batting. And then you have a finished pot lid holder.